Hello and welcome again to the next JScript tutorial. Now this is a long awaited tutorial. So right now what I want to go through is some simple explanation on what's actually happening here. Now remember that object-oriented programming is all about objects. Now if you've programmed in Angular and just plain JavaScript before, or for the web, then you would actually realize that classes are actually new in the web, and also new through ECMAScript 6, but they've been around for quite some time. I mean, they've been around since 2003 or 4, I think, so they've been around for quite some time. So Microsoft implemented this long time ago before the TypeScript project. So what's basically happening here is when you create a class here, like class members, what's basically happening is that this which you actually see being referenced here refers to an object. Now an object is automatically created by this class. So when this class is instantiated, this object is created. Now if you look at this, you basically have first name in this position here, which is actually a string, and you basically have the last name here, which is actually a string. But you also have the get first name as a function, what you call expression, and you also have get last name as also as a function expression. So basically what you do is when you instantiate this class, you get an object like this, and properties and methods of this object of a class can then be accessed using this. I can imagine if you inside this function and you want to access last name method, last name property member, what you would do, you would call this inside here, and then that will give you access to the last name. Also, if you in get last name, you also have access to first name. If you also want to call this dot first name, you have access to that. Now basically, if you look at a JavaScript object, how it's structured, let me just create an example here. So this is an object in JavaScript. Now basically, if you have a member here, if you have a member first here and say this is a member, and you have a second member, and also this one is a second member. Now we have the third member as a function expression. Now the function expression can have this first, it has access to this because this belongs in the same object. Now when you instantiate an object, what JavaScript does, what JScript does inside a constructor function, which is inside of this class, is it returns this object and assigns it to the new object. Now if you look at this, we're actually instantiating members database with new because it's the constructor, and also taking these values to the constructor to be consumed by the constructor to set the members default values, which are also created here, much like said if you're saying maybe this first must equals to 1. What we're basically doing, if we had some argument here and we say this argument here, and this value would be assigned to first, and this one here would change to arg, something like that. So when you get the return of that object, what basically happens is this class, this whole class returns an object. Now that object contains first name, last name, and get first name and get last name. Now that properties, those properties, that object then becomes person. Now you can call get first name on person, and you can call get last name on person. Since person is just an object, get first name is a property or a method of that object. And there's also person.first name and person.last name. But if you look at the identifiers, the access modifiers, var first name has been set with no access modifier, so it doesn't matter, but it will be accessible. But if you set public and public, then these are also accessible outside. But if you set them as private, they can only be called internally within the class. So thank you, and join me in the next video as we discuss more in depth with interface implementation, the constructor functions, and class members and properties.